Today's video is on passwords. We've all used passwords to log into remote websites or remote servers, to do e-commerce, to do all kinds of things that involves remote access to some remote resources. When you're choosing passwords, it's important to choose something that is hard to guess but easy to remember. The best way to do that is to use a passphrase instead of a password. That means you can type a whole sentence and that's your password or your passphrase. You can have spaces between the words, type a whole sentence. You can have punctuation like you would do normally when you type a whole sentence, and use that as your passphrase. If the syntax of the password requires there be no spaces, well then compress all the words together. But don't just use a simple word, because that's likely to be found in a dictionary. And a dictionary attack tries all the words in the dictionary to try to find the one that matches your password. So use a passphrase. Another thing is try not to use the same password for two different websites. Because if they can learn one of your passwords, they will try it to impersonate you on other websites. So how can you do that? Well, we're going to talk about that in a moment when we get to password managers. But first, consider how someone might try to get their hands on your password. The most direct way is to try to steal it. They might try to install malware on your computer, like a keystroke logger that captures all your keystrokes while you type your password. Or they might try a phishing attack that tricks you into visiting a website that you think is the correct website, but it's a fake website that is there simply to capture your password. There may be other kinds of social engineering, but phishing attacks are a form of social engineering. The idea is to trick you into giving up your password voluntarily. So if he can't do a keylogger and can't do a phishing attack and can't do social engineering, if he can't steal your password, the bad guy then tries to guess your password. Now, he's probably not going to be able to guess it by knocking on the front door of the website and just try to log in with a whole bunch of passwords, because a well-designed login screen will be rate limited. That means that it won't give him an infinite number of guesses. After a few wrong guesses, it will lock him out. Or it will take longer and longer between each guess, so that it just takes a prohibitive amount of time to do a dictionary attack and try all the passwords. So how could he do a dictionary attack? How could he guess your password by repeatedly guessing? Well, it won't be in the login screen, but he might try it a different way. If he can attack the server, he can get into the server somehow. He can escalate his privileges in some way and get his hands on the password file that's stored on the server. The password file has the passwords for all the users of that website. But the password file doesn't actually contain the actual passwords. Instead, it contains a cryptographic hash of each password for each user. So the user's password is hashed with a cryptographic hash function. The output of the hash is stored in the password file. When you first sign up to get the account, that's what you do. It stores the hash in the password file. Later, when you try to log in again, it computes the same hash again, compares it with the one that's stored in the password file. If it matches, it lets you in. So that password file is a lucrative target for an attacker. If he can somehow break into that server and exfiltrate the entire password file, he can then do an offline attack, a dictionary attack, trying all the words in a dictionary. And it's a really big dictionary. It's not just Webster's dictionary. It's a dictionary that might contain 100 million password candidates, including famous literary quotes. If you're using passphrases, don't use "to be" or "not to be" or "he's dead, Jim." Use something that's not a famous literary quote. So we'll get more into that in another video on when we talk about passwords advice for system designers. But as an end user, what you need to do is you need to use a password manager. Now, A password manager also gives you another benefit in that you're not supposed to use the same password on 2 different websites. Of course, most people do that anyway because they can't remember 100 different passwords. It's just too hard. And so what a password manager does is it stores all your passwords in an encrypted vault that is accessed with just one master password or passphrase. You might have a high complexity passphrase with lots of entropy, making it very difficult to guess. And you type that in to open the vault, and you can then pull out the right password for the website you're trying to access. And that password will be randomly generated by the password manager. So it does have high entropy. And so you're never going to remember what it is, but you don't have to. That's the job of the password manager. So you can do that with no help at all from the website. This is something you can do unilaterally. So no matter what the security is of the website, or what, they might use two-factor authentication, for example. We'll get to that in a moment. But whether they do or not, you should always unconditionally use a password manager. Now, an even better scheme is some websites, not all, but maybe in the future more of them will, offer you the option to do two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication is really the best way to access remote resources. That means you use something you hold in your hand, like a smart card, or a USB token, or a smartphone running an app that's especially designed for this purpose, using time-based one-time passwords, for example. And inside this thing that you hold in your hand is, like a smart card chip that stores cryptographic key material inside that chip, and it never leaves that chip. You can get the chip to do something with that key material, like calculated digital signature, so the server will send down a random number, ask the smart card to sign it, and return the signature, which can then be checked by the server, which grants you access if it's a good signature. The same is true for USB tokens. They're pretty similar to smart cards in that respect. If it's an app running on your smartphone, then that app captures key material from the website when you first initialize it, when you first start using two-factor authentication. It displays a QR code. You capture it with the camera on your smartphone. It stores this key material in the app, and then it uses that key material to generate a one-time password that changes every 30 seconds. It's a 6-digit number, a 6-digit decimal integer typically. And you either type that in to log in along with your password, or it might send a push notification from the server to the app, and the app reacts by saying, hey, do you want to log into this website, yes or no? If you say yes, you just have to hit the button that says yes, and it takes care of the handshake after that. It's just like it sends the 6-digit code. And then you're in. And so two-factor authentication is really the strongest way to do it. Not all websites will offer you that option, but the ones that do, you should absolutely take them up on it. All the rest of the websites, make sure you're using a password manager. Unconditionally use a password manager. Don't try to remember these high entropy, complex passwords for 100 different websites. You're never going to be able to keep up with that. Or you'll be tempted to use the same password for multiple sites, which, is a major vulnerability. That's the job of the password manager, to remember different passwords for each website. So that's my advice. Use a password manager unconditionally, and use two-factor authentication if it's offered to you by the website.